Mary is signed up to board a ship here in San Diego on January 19th and cruise almost all the way around the world. While I'm talking about it, I thought I would share some information, not her name and address, because some of you might want to become her best friend or be adopted by her between now and January 19th. I'm sending this around so that you can get an idea about her cruise, but we're going to be talking about cruises in general. How many people know what the circumference of the Earth is?
About 25,000 miles.
Good, thank you.
Wow.
Nice.
Good, 2 people. So let's just say for the sake of argument that for 50 years you have been driving your car at least 10,000 miles, which is what the insurance companies, I just had to send in my odometer readings today, the insurance companies do that as an average. So that means we have driven, just for the sake of argument, 500,000 miles. So if there were a freeway that encompassed the Earth, how many times would we have traveled around the world?
75,000. Clearly.
No, maybe about 20 times. But anyway, we don't drive around the world, we drive more locally than that. So I found out some interesting things about cruises, and I'll start with one question. And then when do you think most cruises begin for around the world cruises?
March?
Nope.
Oh,
January.
November?
January. What do you think might be some important features to consider if you're going to sign up for a around the world cruise? Yes?
Weather patterns.
Well, they've got to cope with that, that's true. And weather patterns would be more relevant if you had a small ship. Okay. So let's talk for a moment about the sizes of ships and what relevance that has. For one thing, it has to do with the actual experience. If you're prone to seasickness, you might not want to be on what's considered a smaller ship. And if you get tired of people relatively quickly, you might not want to be on a small ship where you're spending 3 months with the same people. On the other hand, you might not want to be on a large ship, especially a ship that may be taking on passengers in one port, dropping off at another, and you're just not going to have 2,000 of your best friends each week. So that's another thing to consider. You as a person, are you more inclined to want to socialize with everybody and make friends on this cruise? Or are you the sort of person that really would like to have, for example, a room with your own private balcony where you had alone time but could commune with the ocean? And the reason I say that is because I assume most of you know that you have not only different size cabins, but some cabins don't even have a porthole out to the outside. So if seeing the ocean and seeing this light during the day is important to you, you might want to spring for the extra money. Size is important to you, you might want to spring for the extra money. But that's what makes the prices different on these cruises. Another thing that I learned about ships, which is kind of surprising, well, it makes sense that the bigger ships can't get into the more shallow ports. So you might want to cruise and discover that the ship really isn't going to stop where you want it to stop because it has to stop out in the harbor. Now there's a drawback if it stops out in the harbor, which is you're going to take some small boat in and take an organized tour, whereas if you're pulled up to a pier and have the appropriate visas, and my friend Mary is going to have to get a visa. She's already gotten it for China and for India, and on the ship she'll get a visa for Vietnam. Then you can get out and walk around the port city and experience more than if you have to get on an organized and expensive tour. And let's be honest, this is why I said if money is no object. Because cruising is expensive. Not only just the general thing, and you have to think about it, they're getting you somewhere and they're feeding you all your meals and taking care of you. And they write in a tip like $13.50 per day that you're going to pay whether you're happy with the service or not. And some people will be thrilled with the service and some people won't. And that's one of the interesting things about cruises is you want to travel with happy people that are optimists. Another interesting thing, and there are a variety of cruise lines. Now, interestingly, the one that my friend Mary has selected, Holland America, has been in the business for 135 years. That's a pretty long time. England has some cruises that are very British in their style, where if you were to sign up with them, you'd be mainly associating with the British and have high tea and such things. Some people like to explore a little more and might even spend a few days someplace and catch up with the ship on another place. Another interesting thing, for example, in Mary's case, she happens to be boarding here in San Diego, but opting to get off at Fort Lauderdale. Now, the reason she's getting off at Fort Lauderdale is she's already done that leg of the cruise between Fort Lauderdale, which is a major cruise port, and San Diego, a different time. So she will end her cruise by boarding an airplane. Now, that comes to an interesting question. After you've taken all this formal wear and informal wear and bought souvenirs, you're confronted with the problem of getting on the airplane. Interestingly enough, you can make arrangements to have the cruise ship continue on with your belongings. So she could send things back to San Diego and then greet the ship when it comes to shore. I'm just reviewing a little bit of the interesting ideas about cruise ships. Now, here's a really surprising money saver that is going to probably surprise you, and that is, logically, you can assume that if a ship travels fast, it uses up its fuel faster than if it travels slowly. And some cruise lines economize by going to all these ports, but leaving them early, because every hour underway at a slower speed is saving them fuel. So there's many things to consider, and I just thought it would be very important for you to consider it all now, before you win the lottery. So when they start interviewing you, you can already have in your mind whether one of the things that you're going to say to those reporters is, I plan to take a round-the-world cruise. Madam Toastmaster.